one day, broke up with me, took our dog with him, and told me to cancel our adoption. We were set to pick up a baby 3 weeks from that day. I did not feel like a winner. By the way, just so you understand my humor, I'm tempted to just be like, and that's my story, everybody. But there's more. I'm gonna start over. When my husband came home one day, broke up with me, took our dog with him, and told me to cancel our adoption, we were set to pick up a baby 3 weeks from that, I did not feel like a winner. And I was pretty desperate to change that feeling. So I decided that I needed to win at something. And what I decided to win at was therapy. Having never been to a therapist in my life, and knowing that I was perhaps a little bit sad about, that first sentence, I threw myself into finding the perfect therapist. It was my competition, and I was in it to win it. Here's how it worked. Therapist number 1 moved to Italy after our second appointment with 0 warning. As it wasn't my fault, I felt I won that round. Therapist number 2 was pretty good, but she started to probe at the root of my issues, so I had to immediately bail, so I definitely lost that round. Therapist number 3 was super, super sweet. She was in her early hundreds and had a lovely and great-great-grandmotherly energy about her. The problem was, with therapist number 3, is that she wrote in old-school cursive. She accentuated each curlicue, loop, and flourish. She spent 32 minutes of our 50-minute first session writing out my responses on the intake form. I actually clocked it. Her pen turned the words yes and no into Tolstoy-esque screeds. When it was finally time to ask what brought me in, my patience was so far gone that I really couldn't sit there anymore. I would choose to believe that for that round there was no winner in a match that society had deemed that cursive was no longer a good thing. Therapist number 4 was amazing. Therapist number 4 was absolutely amazing. She was a lesbian, which I didn't care about that before I met her. She made me watch a TED Talk, and I was like, oh, cool technology. And she wrote quickly, which was a trait that I now had come to appreciate. The problem was, she stopped taking my insurance, and I couldn't afford her hourly rate out of pocket. So I felt like I had initially won during our session, but then I lost when I got the bill. Which brings us to the bulk of this story, therapist number 5. Therapist number 5 is where the real competition went down. After I told therapist number 4 that I regrettably could no longer afford her support, I asked her if she could give me names of people that I could go see. She provided me with a list of 5 names that fit my well-developed criteria of therapist, woman, not imminently leaving the country, and cursive optional. 4 of the names were on the east side of Cleveland, where I didn't live. 1 of the names was on the west side of Cleveland, where I do live, so I chose the west side one. During my first session with therapist number 5, I spent the bulk of our time describing the relationship with my ex-husband and how determined I was to understand myself better so I would never repeat those mistakes. With a few minutes left, she informed me that her techniques might be tough for me due to my analytical nature, but that if I could embrace her non-traditional approach, breakthroughs would be on the horizon. So that sounded like winning to me, so I was in it. But I couldn't get past the phrase non-traditional approach. For me, therapy itself was non-traditional. The idea that the non-traditional idea of therapy would contain non-traditional techniques made me want to non-traditionally jump at the freaking window. When I returned the next week for my second appointment, therapist number 5 explained that traditional cognitive behavioral therapy would not work for me post-breakup. And that's why I was specifically directed to her. Now, I knew this wasn't true because I had the criteria from therapist number 4. But my goal was to try to be present, which is not something I'm great at, and listen to what therapist number 5 had to offer. And what therapist number 5 had to offer was a choice. A bewildering choice. An impossible choice. Sophie's fucking choice, which I've never actually seen that movie, but I'm nevertheless under the impression that Meryl Streep had to make a decision between a smaller asteroid and a bigger asteroid, something like that. And has anybody actually seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think that's what happened. I'm gonna age you, I've seen like a show like that. All right, without pause, therapist number 5 asked me this question. Do you want to begin with a tapping exercise? Do you want to role play a childhood memory using only words a child would use? Or do you want to flood yourself with color? I knew that the competition was on, so I started to break down my choices in my head. This is how my thinking went. Okay, so tapping myself. Really? How would I win at tapping myself? If the method is truly rooted in something like what my older brother used to do to me to get me to make his bed, then yes, tapping totally works on everybody, but I didn't want to do it again, so no, I'm not doing tapping. Role-playing a childhood memory with only words a child would use. No. Seriously, no. I wasn't going to role-play pain with this stranger unless it culminated with her either paying off my doctoral debt or with my qualifying for a Screen Actors Guild card right at that session. As she explained that neither of those outcomes were on the table, nor was role-playing a childhood memory with only words a child could use. That leaves us with flooding myself with color. Fucking seriously? I mean, could we not? No? Okay, sure. I will flood myself with color. I'm going to flood myself with color, and I'm going to win. Therapist number 5 asked me to run through my body in my head and pinpoint where I was feeling the most pain. Now, this was not a particularly difficult activity, as I had just had spinal surgery 2 weeks before. And so my lower back was experiencing a lot of pain where the spinal surgeon had removed parts of my L4 and L5 vertebra. I explained this to therapist number 5 with a little bit of trepidation, as I figured she was really asking me to identify a place of spiritual or emotional pain, and not something that was caused by an actual scalpel. But therapist number 5 affirmed that my answer about my spinal surgery totally worked, and she was really pleased with my early success in this exercise of flooding myself with color. I felt pleased because I was so obviously winning at therapy. Therapist number 5 then asked me to describe the pain. Using what words, I asked. Well, she answered, if the pain was physically in the space between us, what would it look like? What would it look like, I asked? Yes, what would it look like, Ken? What would it look like? The way she kept saying the word look was clearly supposed to convey some sort of deeper meaning, but I didn't know what she was going for, so I went for the literal. It would look like a 2.5-inch scar. Yes, she crowed good. Really? How was my answer good? I mean, don't get me wrong, I was thrilled that I was continuing to win at therapy, but my answer seemed so superficial and meaningless, and yet onward we went. And what color would you associate with that 2.5-inch scar, Ken? What color would I associate with the scar that's on my back? Yes, Ken. What color would it be? What color? Okay, she was doing it again. She was stressing one particular word as if framing that word could reconcile some sort of mystery at the deep. But I couldn't grasp the arcane or the mystical. I could, however, have a mastery of Roy G. Biv. So I said, red. And she screamed out, yes, red, wonderful. Okay, so I upgraded from good to wonderful, and all I had to do was describe my 2.5-inch red scar as a 2.5-inch red scar. This, for me in my head, was the point where the black wheels started to come off the yellow therapy bus for me, and I knew the green light was about to change, and the red brick wall was fast approaching. Now, Ken, listen carefully, she calmly instructed, and I immediately knew I was going to hate whatever was going to happen. So I'm going to be the therapist, and I'll be what was going on in my head. Okay, therapist over here, what was going on in my head over here. I want you to put your hands in front of you and hold your red scar in your hands. No, I don't want to do that. And I want you to really see the red scar in front of you. Oh my God, why am I here in this office? And I want you to feel it with every part of your mind. Okay, now I'm wondering why I'm here on this planet. And Ken, I want you to flood that red scar with blue. Oh my God. And let's flood it with blue together. This can't be real. Are there hidden cameras? What's happening with this woman? And let's have the blue wash over your whole body. Seriously, I'm willing to do the tapping. Can we do the tapping? There is blue running through your whole body. I'll do the role play. I'll totally do the role play. Blue, Ken, blue. And she was screaming. It was at that point that I noticed that there was a clock in the room, and that clock became the center of my existence. The clock was, I kid you not, blue. I was not sure if it was actually blue or if my color flooding superpowers had run amok, and now I was affecting not just the 2.5-inch red scar in front of me, but also staining the whole world blue all around me. Regardless, I saw on the blue clock that we had 25 minutes left of this session, and I knew there was no way I could do it. So I got up and I left. I just sat in my car and I cried red and blue tears. I competed at therapy and I had completely lost. In the end, I rearranged my budget and I went back to therapist number 4. We talked about my feeling of having lost at therapy with therapist number 5, and therapist number 4 explained, I don't even know if you guys know this, therapy apparently is not a competition. When she said that to me, I got really sad about it, and she saw that I was really sad about it, and she turned to me and she said, well, except for you, you're totally winning. And then she paused, and she looked at me, and she said with all sincerity, now do you want a red medal or a blue one? Thank you. So we're actually, I'm actually selling a couple books tonight, and we're giving 20% of all the book sales back to the, I'm saying it right, don't tell me, the Outsiders Queer Writing Retreat, which is going to support people, queer people going and writing, which is what we all believe in. So we have these 2 books here. There's my travelogue, Seriously, What Am I Doing Here? The Adventures of a Wandering and Wandering Gay Jew. That's me. And then there's also LGBTQ Cleveland. And again, 20% of all these sales tonight are going back to the Queer Outsiders Writing Retreat. Sounds good? Cheers. Thank you all.
Thank you. Here, Coley's actually going to take it. Sorry, we're making this up. Weird.
No, it's not.